Welcome to Clay Mastermind with Don Grant. Mental excellence and industry insights. Brought to you by the Clay Lab, your ultimate podcast for mastering the mental game of clay shooting and gaining exclusive insights from the top minds in the industry. Join us as we dive into the strategies of elite athletes, uncover the secrets to peak performance, and share powerful techniques to enhance your shooting skills. Plus, get behind-the-scenes access to the leaders and innovators who are shaping the future of the clay shooting industry. Get ready to elevate your game, sharpen your focus, and gain insider knowledge from the best in the business. Let's get started. Here's your host, Don Grant.
Well, thank you, Diane Sorantino, for joining me today on the podcast. I really love that you were able to make time for this for us and look forward to chatting with you today.
Thank you, Dawn. I'm glad to be here, and I really appreciate you asking me to come on.
Of course, I'm really excited to talk to you because you are one of the women who have made it big and made it awesome and just led a path in the clay shooting industry for women. And so I look forward to you being able to share lots of stuff with the listeners about that. So how about just chatting a little bit about yourself? Tell us a little bit about you. Who are you?
Wow. We don't have that much time, right? For the most part, shooting has been just a part of my life ever since I was young. As most people know, I've said before, I took my first shots with a shotgun at the age of 9, and I think I was absolutely hooked right at that point. My dad was an avid shooter, trap shooter. My grandfather, my Uncle Tony. So it was in the family. We had our own bunker on the farm set up, and so it was most likely that one of us was going to probably pick up shooting, and it was me.
Nice. So tell us more about you besides shooting. So who is Diane and what have you been doing with your life?
Well, I retired a little over 10 years ago from law enforcement. It was a career that was just awesome. And I say, if I had to do it all over again, I would. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it was the right pick for me. Even though growing up, sometimes you don't know what you're doing or where you're going or where it's going to lead you, especially when I was younger. You can imagine, Dawn, you know me fairly well. I had to do a project in home economics class when I was young. Well, the project was I think it was needlepoint. I'm not quite sure. And we had to needlepoint something. And I needlepoint was a sign that said trap shooter. And the teacher was kind of confused, what is this? And I said, I'm going to be a trap shooter. That's what I'm going to do. So from a young age, that's
on your needlepoint.
On my
crazy.
needlepoint, that's what I had. I wish I still had it. God only knows what happened to it over the years, right? But so as time went on, of course, in college, I majored in criminal justice administration. It just seemed like something that had a connection with me. Deep down, I had a connection with it. Everyone thought maybe I should be a teacher or a coach because I've been involved in athletics my whole life. Actually, my first organized team that I was on, I was in 2nd grade. So that's that's pretty early on. That's, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old. And ever since then, I've been involved in some type of athletics throughout my life.
Very cool. So tell us some of your accomplishments in clay shooting. What are some of your highest accomplishments and what people know you for?
Wow. I've been shooting for clay shooting, sporting clay shooting for approximately 32 years now. I've been very fortunate to be able to compete in some of the greatest events, travel to some of the greatest countries, see the sights, be able to gain that type of experience. I've been able to accomplish some things that were definitely, as I moved on and I saw as part of my personal bucket list, were world championships, because I thought at that point that's where you're going to compete against the world's best shooters. And it still proves to be true today. And right now I have 5 world championships, gold medals. I have several runner-up and bronze medals also in those world championships. So I've shot quite a few. In state, I have several national and U.S. Open titles, and I've also been installed as a member of the Hall of Fame at the NSCA.
Nice.
So there are obviously some other tournaments and titles that I've won along the way, but those are the ones I really covet.
Yeah, yeah. And so when you were working in law enforcement, were you shooting much then?
So that's an excellent question, because seeing what goes on now around the shooting circuit, where some people are very committed to the sport, which is great, which is awesome, and they put the work in. I don't see many of those people working full-time jobs. I did work full-time job, like I'll bet you 99% of the other shooters out there that are working full-time. So what I did was I carefully crafted vacation time around shooting. So for a good part of it, anytime I took vacation time from work, it involved shooting. So that's how I actually did it and was able to compete.
What about practicing then?
Practicing was tough. I have more availability to practice now than I ever did, but I don't seem to take advantage of it. But practicing was tough because you had to fit it in. And actually, a lot of times your practice was the tournament you went to.
And what were you doing with the law enforcement as far as what level did you achieve there, and what were you doing, and where was that?
Well, I happened to land in a great area, Cape May County portion of New Jersey. And for those that don't realize it, that's right on the Atlantic Ocean. It's a beautiful resort. And I worked everything from patrol, detectives. I was actually the first DARE officer. I worked in administration. And then eventually, as things unfolded, I had the opportunity to be promoted to chief of police, and I was able to achieve that promotion.
That's what I wanted you to share, because you were very successful in your career. And what I like to try to look at is, how do you feel that mind, like what made you so successful in that career and all those different areas of that career, and how that translated over into your shooting? What do you see as a parallel there?
Well, I think to reflect on it, it probably could be good and bad. In my line of work, I kind of, obviously see things. I don't want to say black or white, because listen, in law enforcement, you have to be able to see the middle. You have to be able to see the gray to be effective. So, but sometimes in my mind, I'm too rigid. I'm too rigid. And I realize this as time goes by, and that could also transfer into everything else you do in life, your personal relationships, your family relationships, etc., and then into shooting. So being able to, I don't know if control is the right word, that part of your personality, to be able to function well as an athlete, and not be so hard on yourself, because let's face it, we are the hardest on ourselves. And whether we want to admit it or not, we are the hardest. And it all comes back to that ego. And so as a police officer, yes, there's a certain job you have to do. There's a certain way you have to conduct business. That's you're there to assist the public in the best way you can, but also you have to hold up the law. And so by doing that all transfers to your life in general when you're not working. So you have to strike that balance. I think sporting clays and shooting was a little bit of a release for me, which is good. But you have to be careful not to be so rigid with yourself when you're, competing or preparing to compete.
Yeah, great self-assessment there. And you had talked about or mentioned, whether it was good or bad, to be able to see these things in yourself. And it is good. A lot of people aren't super self-reflective, and they're not really noticing, like, what are my strengths and what are my weaknesses, and what areas, well, and you said, like, something that worked really well as a police officer or in law enforcement might not work well in something else, right? And so you had to be aware of that and manage your mind around those types of situations, which is really good insight.
But it's very tiring as well.
Yeah, right?
To be on top of it, and and when Sunday rolls around and you're going to a tournament, to be all in and to be able to focus on what you need to do. So,
Yeah.
then Monday rolls around and it's a different type of focus for me at work. So
Right.
some of the stuff absolutely transfers over, but you have to see it, and you have to be able to say, okay, this is where I'm at now. This is where I'm at now. This is how I can get through this tournament, this trip. I'm going to be out of the country for 10 days. All the anxiety that goes with competing and leaving your job, when you're the absolute person in charge of the department.
Well, and then life changed a bit when you did retire. So was that an interesting transition for you related to how it affected your shooting?
It did. I had a lot of things happen at once. Retirement, the sudden loss of my father, and some other things going on. And listen, down the road, it all dumps in. At one time or another, it just kind of hits you. And I think there was a point in time, and Dawn, you and I talked about this at length, where everything just kind of fell in. Just kind of like all of a sudden, I'm trying to hold, 100-pound bag of concrete, and it's not working. So, as you know, retirement is great. Okay, everybody strives for it. It's great, but it also could be very stressful. To figure out your life after and how it's going to work with shooting. And I was very fortunate to be able to work through some of those issues. And then I was very fortunate to have Anthony Matarese come along and say, hey, I think we can be a great male-female team to do shooting instruction. And I jumped right on it because it is a passion. I love helping people, and it's been working out great ever since.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's been, what, 5 or 8 years or something? How long have you been at M&M doing instruction there?
Well, I think I recall, basically I retired, which was like 10 and a half years ago. And Anthony, who has a very good personality and he's kind of funny, said, okay, you can have 6 months off, but then we're going to work. So I got to have full retirement for like 6 months. And then I started to, assimilate into the program that we have now. And he has largely built at AIM Shooting School.
Nice. I can't believe it's been that long, because I remember when that happened. Holy cow. Jeez. So what's your thoughts around your support system and who you've got cheerleading for you and how that affects you versus maybe people aren't supportive or aren't really in the box with you? Like, what have you experienced around that in your life with shooting?
So lucky in many aspects there. Total family support. I feel like I really have support of my fellow shooters as well, going to the range and just being able to interact with everyone. I get a lot of the phone calls, the texts, the messages, guys out on the course, always with taking a moment to just, hey, Diane, keep up the good work. Just having the support of everyone. I've never felt like I haven't, and which is great. So I really consider myself fortunate. I've been aligned with great companies in this game, and they're very supportive. I have quite the longevity with these companies as well, and hope to continue with all that in the future.
Have you ever noticed, because you did say for a little while it was like you were carrying, I don't remember if you said 100 pound of concrete or whatever. When things are like that were going on in your life, did you notice that it affected your shooting performance?
Absolutely. You know, back in the I think that was around 2012, 2013 time frame. We had a great team manager for our Team USA, a lady by the name of Judy Morris, who I know you know well. And Judy was the one that introduced me to you. I didn't know who Dawn Grant was. I think Dawn was you were just kind of coming on the scene as far as shooting. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, came out of the closet in 2013 with Wendell's permission.
Well, there you go.
Actually been involved since 2009 with clay shooters.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were running under the cover of darkness, and
Exactly.
you know, because let's face it, you know, no one really wants to say that, yeah, I talked to someone to try and get things a little more clarity, a little straightened out. Someone else's point of view, maybe that can offer me some, you know, as what's the old saying, something I could put in my tool belt that I could utilize going down the road and to make things, you know, a little clearer for me. So Judy had suggested to me, she goes, you know, she saw things piling up on me, very observant. And she said, you know, there was a lot of things going on in my life. And she said, why don't you try talking to Dawn? And I said, okay. And we had a great connection, and it, you know, without getting into too much detail, was very, very helpful, and to be able to sort things out. And Dawn, if I can say so, one of the biggest takeaways was examining fear. Examining fear, because fear just paralyzes us, controls us. And as athletes, and very competitive athletes, some of us are, we just don't want that ego to say, well, none of that bothers me, you know, almost like it can't possibly bother us. But, you know, things can. Fear sometimes can paralyze you and paralyze your thoughts.
Absolutely.
I think I even, what happens is as time is going on, you get to know a little bit, and you get to know a little bit more. And then you see it in other people, and you know what's going on, but changing it is hard, because change, as we know, can vary. Well, actually, let me take that back. At our age, or change is tough. Change is tough. It can be made in small increments, I think, but I don't think you're going to see a big, you know, 360, my opinion, on that. And so, you know, looking out and seeing some of these shooters, and some of the very same shooters I'm trying to help with their technique and and you know, how do I break that 60-yard teal, and how do I do this when the other, if they're competing on a Sunday and the other 6 days they don't structure their being and their thoughts in the right direction, it's not going to happen. It's not going to be magic on Sunday, is what I'm trying to say, if that makes sense. It's not going to be magic on Sunday. So that change has to evolve, and it can be slow, you know, nothing drastic, but just kind of understanding yourself and maybe some of the things you want to do, and not let something as simple as fear, which, what do we know about fear? 99.9% of the time, whatever you're fearing doesn't even happen or can't happen. So there's some of the things that I had to work through. It definitely helped me a lot to be able to talk about it and figure out, okay, this is what I know. This is how I handle this. Being able to handle it is when you feel confident about that, is when you're ready to go.
Definitely. And, you know, fear, there's a lot of people who'll be like, oh, I'm not afraid of anything. I don't have fear. And, you know, or there's the really common, or the well-known fear of success, fear of failure. And, a lot of what you're talking about is underlying fear. So, like, worry has fear behind it, anxiety has fear behind it, regret even has fear behind it. So, a lot of these common, let's say, negative emotions, thoughts, feelings that do affect you physically have fear behind them. Actually, every negative thought and emotion has fear behind it. It You may not see it directly, but it's underneath there. And fear actually triggers the fear response, the stress response, the fight or flight response, which obviously is not good when it comes to wanting to be your best and performing and getting a good score, right?
And unfortunately, so we are fresh off the Northeast Regionals at Hopkins Game Farm just this past week and weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So being out at the range yesterday, talking to a few people on the phone or text message, everything, whether it was, well, the day we shot the red course, the wind was blowing in this direction. The day they shot the red course, it was blowing in the opposite direction. And the targets were coming into them instead of being 50, 60 yards out. Things like I can't understand, I've never shot over corn field. I've never
Right.
shot over a soybean field. And I mean, all these things, and rarely, and you know this because you're a range owner also. Rarely do you hear somebody say, yeah, I really shot well.
Right.
I mean, it's always, okay, yeah, I missed a few too many. That course was really easy. I should have shot 95. When they never shot
Yeah.
95 in their life. Okay? And
Yeah.
they're in C class. So not to, I'm not trying to be down on anyone, but we got to have a little bit of a
Just the
reality check
facts.
sometime.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So often what we talk about and we stand around the griping, the complaining, it's all very negative. The scorers or the trappers didn't know dead from lost. People are going to take advantage of that. Now we're allowing our mind to believe that. And whether you want to believe it or not, when you step up to the station, you're still thinking that. It's still
Oh, yeah.
rolling. And a couple times, I just had to say to myself, okay, this is, it's not my problem. It's not my problem, and I can't do anything about it.
Stay in your own lane. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
stay in your own
and the
lane.
thing is that is you're absolutely right. And the level of negativity is actually the norm. Like a high level of negative conversations is more of the norm. And at a high percentage rate, I like to think of it like in the office, it's the water cooler conversations or around the coffee pot or in the coffee room or the break room or whatever. They tend to be very negative. If you think about an office scenario, it's like complaining about the work or the weather outside or the boss or the other employees or schedule or the workload or whatever, and in clay shooting, it's the weather and the targets and the range and the
Right.
food. And, it's like habitual for people to talk in those manners. And so, yeah, with awareness, you can start to recognize not only how often that's happening, but then be very deliberate about, whether you're engaging in it, whether you're changing the topic, whether you're walking away, doing something to preserve your mind, recognizing, how valuable that is, especially if you're in the midst of a competition. Because if somebody's upset about the weather, or let's say upset about the targets, and they're talking about that on lunch and then they're shooting in the afternoon, that did not go away when they're walking into the stand to shoot.
Yeah,
It's basically what you're saying, right?
Exactly what I'm saying. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I've never said anything negative, because I have. I'm guilty of it
Yeah,
myself.
we're human.
And you got to be careful you don't get like sucked down the tube and into it. You're halfway through a course and somebody goes, there's going to be a 97 on this course, and I've already missed 8 birds. I mean, okay, let's finish. Let's see what happens. I mean, we can't really worry about that. Or you're sitting on your phone in the golf cart and you're just checking the scores and you're checking the scores. And this just does a lot to their mental psyche. And I just wish people would realize that. Listen, it's hard work. It's hard work to be an athlete and to be good at whatever your sport is. It's very hard work. And you have to put the time in and you have to put the work in. And there's some people out there that really do. And it shows, because if you look at the results in these shoots, just take the big ones: regionals, US Open, World FITES, World English, etc. Top 10 people, names are interchangeable. They're all interchangeable right there. Top about, occasionally there'll be one, I don't want to say dark horse, but for lack of a better term, dark horse that'll sneak into there. And that's the overall standings. And if you look at the ladies standings, about the same way. It's about the same way. When they were talking about, I was at the range yesterday, they're talking about the scores and how some people really shot well, blah, blah, blah. You know what the funny thing is? Fourth overall, which is Masters first, Karen Miles in this last regional. Absolutely phenomenal. Okay. And never heard one person mention her name that she was fourth. And I just thought, I was driving home and I thought, that's odd. And
yeah,
I just don't know if anybody realized it, but that's a huge accomplishment. Thank you. I mean, I think she shot 189. Like, oh my gosh.
So, which brings up a really great topic. And I talked to Madison about this a little bit in her podcast. But what are your thoughts around why women are not high overalls at major events and why they're not consistently in the top 5 or 10 overall? Because in my brain, I think a lot of people's minds, there's nothing about this sport that a man is able to do better than a woman. As far as like, it's not like they're lifting, 500 pounds, and it's not like the endurance, the ability to do something for 4 hours is like capable on both genders. What do you think about that? What's been going on?
Well, let me just say first, the ladies' game is definitely elevated. I mean, these are some great young shooters coming in there, and it kind of just thrills me to death to see it. Dawn, I don't know. That's the great question about it. If we were talking about weightlifting, obviously, or we'd have our answer or something. Okay.
Right.
There is a little bit of difference, obviously, in the way men and women process things. But one of the things I'm seeing with these ladies, these young ladies, is the commitment, the time spent practicing, learning the game, having the better equipment, having the equipment fit, all these things that may have not been a luxury in the past to women.
Yes, I'm following you.
I mean, okay, let's just I'm just going to use Madison and Karen, because they're on top of their games right now, okay? And they're going to be there for a while. But they both immerse themselves into the game, practice, learning each shot, breaking it down. So I think they're practicing the proper way. They're constantly learning about the game. They have the time and the resources to be able to do it. And I think that's what's going to make better lady shooters, and we're starting to see it.
And the gun fit that has changed over the last several years, the ability for a woman to get a gun. Yeah.
Exactly. Where now companies are actually trying to craft guns that are maybe better fitted for women or smaller stature people. But I guess I'd have to talk to somebody like Jim Greenwood. But what was the market of women having custom stocks made? I'm going to bet when I was coming up through the ranks here, I bet it was very, very small. But now,
for sure,
I think it's grown. So all these things, their commitment to the game, wanting to be better, not settling for, I'm just going to shoot, this gun that somebody just, pulled out of their their trunk of their car, you know. So I think better equipment, better time, understanding the game, having people willing to help, having the resources, I think has helped definitely. Well, it's elevated the men's game also, but it's really elevated the ladies' game. I said, talking to another lady shooter, I said, hey, winning now is going to require you to shoot 90 or better on a course.
Yeah.
Yeah, no more 84 and you win. You know.
Yeah.
So the game's there. It's elevated. I think we're going to see it. Dawn, I think if it's not one of those ladies, it'll be somebody coming up. But I think we're going to see more of them placing in master's class or on the podium at a large shoot. You figure she was one bird off from the podium.
Right.
So just my
I'm following
opinion,
you.
just my opinion on what I've seen. All the credit goes to the person that's willing to put that kind of work into the game, and it shows. I mean, listen, it has nothing to do with the men that finished in the top 3. No, I know each of them very well, and they're very excellent shooters and are going to be for a long time. But when I saw Karen's score come up and all the scores weren't in yet, and she was in the lead, I was like, oh my, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And then when it shakes out, she was a couple birds short, but she was there.
Very exciting times. And I think that's a really good assessment of what has changed for women, what wasn't there before, but is more there now and is showing up in the scores and will continue to evolve in that direction.
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah. So there's a phrase, it's 90% mental, and that can be offensive to some people and they don't necessarily believe it. But so what are your thoughts on that phrase? It's 90% mental.
Well, hey, if you have bad mechanics, you can have the best mental game in the world and it's not going to help you. My opinion. Knowing the game, having good mechanics, and how to execute various shots that we need to now. Because let's face it, the targets are, over my lifetime of shooting, the targets are more difficult, flat out. The course setters are really getting into some tricky stuff, which is fine, which is good. And because the level of the shooter has risen so much. It has a lot to do with it. I don't know if it's 90%, but like I say, it's so easy for somebody to tell me, I can break every target out there. I just can't execute. It's my mental game. Well, you can't just hand someone a mental game. There's no shooting instructor out there that can hand you a mental game.
Yeah.
I just say it's just not possible, because your mental game is you, and it comes from everything you do 100% of the time. How do you conduct yourself? If I can just use, because I know him so well and we work together, if I can use Anthony for an example, the way he shoots and if you look at his quote unquote mental game and how he approaches it, well, guess what? He approaches everything else in his life in the same manner. He does. Whether I don't care what it's doing. It could be he could be fishing with his kids, and he approaches it in the same manner. He's very bound and determined. He gets things done. But that's his mental process and
his MO.
Right. And like I said before, I think a little while ago, if you think you're going to have this strong mental game, but the other 5 or 6 days a week, you're going to be, whatever you do, off the handle, or I always say, if you're going to be that, and doing things like that, getting upset, and it's not going to transfer just to Sunday so you can have a great round and break 96 targets out of 100. So is it 90%? I don't know, Dawn. When it comes down to it, if you've practiced and you put the time in and, everything's good, your mechanics, from your setup to how you're going to approach certain targets, what's left is to basically execute. And to execute, yes, you have to be within yourself and you have to reach down. That's where That's where you reach down. That's where the subconscious comes from. I tell people that conscious, subconscious, you can't take, it's not like a light switch. If only it could be. But I said, when you finally reach it, you'll know what it is. Hard to explain, but you'll know what it is in your shooting. Circling back to 90%. It's a lot. I think it's a lot. But there's other parts of the game that have to be there in order to achieve your great results that you think you need or you want.
I think that assessing and thinking about it over the years, you definitely bring up valid points. Like you can't have like this amazing mental game and no mechanics, then all of a sudden pull it off. I mean, the only thing slightly close to that is when somebody's hunting, right? Like maybe they never had official shooting instruction, but they're out hunting, and if they're in that moment and present, they have a pretty good shot at that bird or whatever. But when I think of the 90% mental, I think more of like, let's say you do have some good mechanics or great mechanics ingrained in your subconscious mind because you've had great instruction and practice, repetition. So those physical movements are in your subconscious mind, and you also have like a file cabinet full of like targets, awareness of different presentations. If a person shows up and they're pissed off, angry, arguing with somebody, fighting, thinking about their score, worried about, which direction or which order they're going to shoot this pair, their squad mates or their squad mates aggravating them, would you say you've seen yourself or other people kind of fall apart when their mind isn't there, even if they have everything else there?
Absolutely. I would say yes. And sometimes I could look in the mirror and it's me. But to assess and see other shooters that I know have great mechanics, I know they know how to break the bird and then not be able to pull it off for one reason or another because of the mental process just is not there. Because again, they're worrying about those things, other things, all the external chatter that goes on. They're worrying about, the weather. They're worrying about whether we had bad wind direction. That type of thing. So,
So, it makes me think of, if the phrase itself is it's 90% mental, then what's the it, right? And what's coming to my mind is instruction, physical shooting instruction, and practice, diligent practice and repetition should all be on the front end and not the day of competition, right? So all on the front end. You never want to change something with your swing or your swing, your follow through, your gun mount. You don't ever want to change anything that day or the day before. So all the mechanics then should be ahead of time. So if we were to say it's 90% mental, then I'm thinking the day of competition in that moment, if ideally you've got everything in your subconscious muscle memory, like whatever you want to call it, then the 90% mental is like, what am I able to do with it? And my mind will make or break everything that I've been practicing and bringing to this table in this competition. I think a good balancing way to look at what that might mean.
Yeah, I mean, that was the way you explained it. Yeah, it made a lot of sense. I mean, leading up to it, let's just say you've done everything right and you put the time in. Well, what's left to do? Execute. And execution has a lot to do with our mental state. Has, a ton to do with our mental state. We're just fresh off watching our Olympic athletes and watching them perform and knowing that their 4 or 5 years of preparation, because we know they've had the best training, the diets, the workouts, everything, coaching. Now it comes down to, okay, I have this day or 2 days for my event. And if I don't perform to the highest standard, I'm done, So a lot of it is that with shooting. And look, I'm going to tell you. So let's just say we have 700 people at a regional. probably 25 of those people maybe are really accessing their mental and
game.
the
Yeah.
other 675, 650 are like, I don't know why I missed it. I can't hit that. They don't know. And it's not their fault, because a lot of people the majority of people that shoot this game shoot it for fun. They shoot it for fun. It's their recreation. They enjoy it. They enjoy getting together. They enjoy the meal that the range serves, that type of thing. And that's okay. That's completely okay. But when we talk about that top, like I say, the top 10 men or the top 6 or 7 women, okay, it's a different story. I mean, they're there to compete. And so it definitely makes a difference. But, you got to take the time to figure out some stuff in it. It's got more to do than to do with shooting.
Yeah. So one of my lessons is called the 7 elements of peak performance, and it addresses like what you're eating, what you're drinking, if you're physically fit, your sleep, your faith, your mental game, and your mechanics. So in my opinion, those are 7 elements that will contribute to how well your body and you're able to perform and compete. Have you seen that in your own life and in your own competing, how those things play a part?
Definitely. When I'm properly practiced, or let's just say a little better physically fit, it makes a difference in my shooting. It definitely makes a difference in my timing. What it does is it enhances my confidence. And confidence is a big, big word in this game. And I don't think we do enough to try and bolster it. Because if you're not shooting with confidence, if you're shooting for one of those 10 spots and you're not shooting with confidence, it's a problem.
Well, let me add, if you're not shooting with confidence, you're shooting with fear, to go full circle back to you. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So, I would agree with you on those elements. Sleep is so important. Sleep's important. Listen, these are all important in everyday life. Things that we need to pay attention to. But when it comes to a specific sport, whatever your sport is, we're talking about shooting, obviously, but those things will definitely enhance your game. Anything you can do to bolster your confidence, especially leading up to a tournament, is gonna keep that fear at bay.
When I think of confidence, I think of a bowling ball and then all the pins, and like all the pins are worry, doubt, fear, regret, overthinking, like all of these potential human mental issues that can come up, and confidence will just plow them out of the way. But the trick is learning how to build your confidence, right? And a lot of people think that you build confidence only by winning. They'll be like, well, how am I going to build my confidence when I don't win? But that's not what I teach. I believe that you can build confidence in anything, even if you didn't get the score you'd like. It's a matter of choosing to think about it in a way that's constructive and that you can learn from it. And then you build your confidence, and you can build confidence even in the midst of misses if you know how to, work with your mind and be the director of your mind.
Right. Just going out and having a good practice session. Yeah, of course you're going to miss some, but when you're able to figure out what's going on, work through some stuff, and you come out of there and you feel really good, that serves the same purpose. Your confidence is getting there, and you feel good going into it.
Going back to Karen Miles and tying that into the whole 7 elements and physically fit. When I used to go to PJ Tour events monthly, Tiger Woods was pretty big back then. And he was one of the only golfers who took physical fitness seriously at the time. And he traveled with a personal trainer, and it was kind of known, here's this man, he's an athlete playing golf, where golf wasn't always thought of that way. And so he was like on the cutting edge of making that really an more athletic event, and having the strength, the endurance, the everything that comes with being physically fit early on before the other golfers. Now, I watched the trend expand. Like, it's very common now for the golfers to take that part of the sport and themselves, and make sure they're nurturing it. And so when I look at Gebben and Karen, they remind me of Tiger Woods back then. Like, both of them obviously believe in the importance of being healthy and physically fit. And, you have to wonder how much that element is playing into the success that she's having, as it's one of what I believe to be the 7 elements to peak performance.
I'm going to say definitely is playing a big part.
Yeah.
What fitness does is to me is it builds your psyche. You feel better about yourself. And when you feel better about yourself, everything else in every walk, in all your walks of life, everything you do, I was, over the years when I was stronger and a little smaller, I felt like I shot much better. And I think, not only is it good for you, actually healthy, all those things that are great, but that's just another way to build your confidence. And do I think it benefits her? Absolutely. And, she needs to just keep what she's doing.
Well, going back to some of what you said earlier of what we think could be contributing to the women progressing in this sport, and that level of commitment, and its commitment to learning, its commitment to the practice, its commitment to even being physically fit. So there's things that I think we're able to observe, having watched, for years in this sport, that these women are doing now that they weren't doing before.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
this was a good little subtopic we just got off on, and I think it has a lot to do with their psyche and being able to perform at a higher level. So yeah, definitely fitness. And it's no secret that Karen and Gebben have very strong faith, which works for them, and
Correct.
and I think all those things build her game, and that's what I think that's what you're seeing.
Yeah. Well, going back to you and your awesomeness, I'm curious, in your shooting life and career, has there ever been a time where you felt like quitting, like in the midst of an event or after a tournament that maybe you didn't shoot as well as you like? Did you ever feel like, I'm just done, I walk away from this?
I guess truthfully, I have to say yes. It doesn't last, but I can tell you this: it doesn't last very long. Because,
Yeah.
it's just that knee-jerk reaction of, oh my goodness, like, that was just terrible. And then I'm like, okay, I got to just work myself through it. Why was it terrible? I know I'm not putting in the time that I should be to practice. I have more time than ever to practice now, and I'm not. But, I've been at this for 32 years. I enjoy spending time at the range, helping people. And then I see myself going back to the range to practice. It turns out to be a lot right now. And so, yeah, is there times that you're kind of like, well, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. But I don't think it has to anything. When I think about it, it's not really shooting. You know what the one thing is, Dawn? Travel.
What?
Travel.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Travel is getting to the point. Air travel is horrible. There's always a glitch in the game there somewhere. And, sometimes, most of the time you're traveling by yourself and, sitting in a hotel room by yourself and those kind of things. And you're kind of like, oh, this is really fun. No, it's not. And, but so I think what happens is, for me, the one thing that stands out in my mind for saying, yeah, I need to lay back, or this or that or the other thing, is travel. I think the travel's gotten to me a little bit, and sometimes I just need a break. So that's what I do once in a while, is just take a break. So that makes sense. That's where I'm at with that. So I can't quit shooting. I love shooting. I would miss it. I miss it the very next day. So
What about it do you think keeps bringing you back for more?
it's gotta be the way, I don't know, growing up, the way I was raised. It's just such a good memory with my family members who are all passed on now. And it was just such a great time, and we totally enjoyed it, and I still enjoy it. So I got hooked at a young age.
Yeah, such a great feeling it brings about for you.
It does. Great memories.
So, do you believe that it's important to be having fun while you're out there and while you're competing? Or are you more of the mind? Because there's different mindsets. Another is, no, this is serious and I'm here to win. Like, which way do you see it?
I think there has to be a little bit of balance. You're not going to be out there. You shouldn't be out there, backslapping and telling jokes and doing whatever, because usually the people that you're shooting with are pretty serious, and they're, you know, they want to be a competitor. They want to finish well. So I think there is time for fun. After the shooting, there's a lot of, fellowship that goes on, whether you're having dinner or you're just sitting around one of the vendor trailer tents talking. So there's plenty of time for fun, but I think you have to stay in your zone. You have to stay in your lane, whatever you want to call it, while you're competing. So you can have control of what's going on in your thoughts. So that's my thought about the fun. I think I have a lot of fun shooting, but it's kind of after the shooting is over type thing.
It's like the definition of fun. Yeah, I think the interpretation of the word fun definitely could see how it's like a party and people are wanting to go not only get together in the evenings, but they're drinking and then they're hungover and, and like you said, just a little bit more rambunctious maybe during the stand or in the stand or in the squad. And when I think of fun, I'm thinking more like the opposite of being miserable. Like if a shooter is angry or worried or frustrated or any of those fear-based thoughts that we were talking about, then they're not having fun. And the elimination of those things puts you in a state of fun, but also can put you in the zone state, which when people describe the zone, they talk about a state of euphoria and it felt amazing. It felt great. And I don't think they necessarily use the word fun. I mean, I think they might because it did feel so good and it was enjoyable. And so that's when I think of that, that's the way I see the word fun. It's like, well, I'm not miserable and I'm enjoying it and I'm enjoying my time there. And I think that's important for when you're competing.
So then I see what you're saying. So then if I go with how your definition of fun, I would definitely say yes, having fun is important, because how I would relate it would be, let's just say you go out and you shoot a course and maybe it's the old, I didn't break as many as I wanted to. I missed a few too many. That happens. Well, I personally can't wait to get out on the course tomorrow and shoot again to see what I can do. So if I wasn't having fun, I wouldn't be looking forward to the next day. So if we look at fun like that, I think that is important. That is important for the shooter to be like, okay, maybe today, maybe it says 82 on my scorecard and I'm not happy. Well, I got to shoot tomorrow. If somebody that's doing that's not having fun, obviously. I can't wait to get out there tomorrow to see if I can break more. And so that would probably go in line with your definition for fun, I think.
Yeah. That's really what it is. It's like how you define that word and what that word means to a person. Yeah.
Right.
Well, so you are one of the top women shooters in the world and have paved the way for years for women in this sport, which I think is amazing. What would be your piece of advice or wisdom that you would want to pass on to shooters if there was something you could kind of sum up and give to them as a gift, what would you
Wow. So get the experience. Get the experience. Make sure you're if you want to compete and you want to be serious and you want to compete at a high level, you know, make sure you're prepared. Don't attend like a world or a regional and then you walk out of there and, obviously you weren't prepared and your score wasn't that great and you think you failed. All right. So go into something, if you want to be in, be in. And I think that's what we're seeing with some of the lady shooters now. Some of the top lady shooters, they want to be in and they're doing everything right. Okay. So just don't go about it half-hearted and then you're so upset and you think you failed. It takes hard work. It takes hard work and you have to be ready to do it. You have to be ready to commit to it. And if you can't commit to it, then your results are always going to be like mediocre. So if you enjoy it, stay with it, educate yourself, work hard, find good role models in the sport, talk to them. I'm sure any of the ladies that are really, really on top of the game right now would take at any point in time, take time out of their day to speak to you. And that's important. So I just think, it takes hard work to get there and to stay there. So also, Dawn, I want to tell some of the younger shooters, whether they be ladies or guys, it's a lot. You need a lot of resources for this game. Don't shortchange yourself on your future. Make sure you're taking care of yourself and make sure that you're able to be in this game and able to basically be able to afford it. Unfortunately, that's maybe going to keep some people out, but if it does, it does. But, I'm always like, you got to be gainfully employed at some point. And that's, you got to think about it. You got to think about things like basic health care. You got to, you got to think about, what am I going to do when I can't shoot this shotgun as well as I used to anymore? So just think about those things, but absolutely enjoy it. Set your goals and they don't, they don't have to be real long term. Just set yourself some short goals and what you want to accomplish and work from there. So I think that would be kind of my advice at this point.
Nice. Love it. That's great advice. Well, speaking of budgets, I do have free stuff for listeners on my website. It's dawngrant.com/free. And like if somebody wants to come to my shotgun club, there's a coupon for a free golf cart rental, but there's also free access to some of my mental training stuff. And Diane, for you, as far as like your info, your email, your phone number, website, how can people get a hold of you to get instruction with you?
Yeah, so easily get a hold of me. It's AIM Shooting School, or you can look at www.clayshootinginstruction.com. You'll be able to get my information to contact me. I would look forward to hear from anyone, even if they just have a question.
Yeah. Anything else you'd like to add that you're just dying to say that we didn't talk about?
Well, I think I should say, over the years, obviously, I've had great support in the game. I've had some really good sponsors who have just been so supportive and helped me out a lot and still continue to help me. And I can't say enough about Beretta USA. I've been with them over 25 years. It's a great partnership, and I look to maintain that partnership for years to come. Also, Ammo B&P USA, great ammo they provide for me, very friendly company. RE Ranger, who supplies my eyewear. You want to keep track with them, stay online with them. They're coming out with new products all the time to offer better lenses, different colors. And then also they make a great set of glasses for younger people just coming into the sport. Riley, who always helps me with all the little extras and choke tubes and different things of that nature. They're a great resource. Sound Gear provides me with my earplugs, and then Ultimate Shooting accessories for the great vest and keeping me in a nice vest where, you know, I'm not having to wear the same one year after they get really faded and dirty.
Right.
So they're all been very helpful, and I'm appreciative of the partnerships, and I look to continue those in the years to come.
Beautiful, beautiful. And folks can come see me at Amelia Shotgun Sports. We do have monthly NSCA events there, and definitely follow me on any and all of the social medias. I really appreciate you being on here, Diane, and I've enjoyed knowing you over all these years, and always enjoy seeing you at events. And I hope to have you as a guest again in the future, and definitely see you soon.
Well, thanks, Dawn. It was really fun, and I'm probably going to stop by Amelia on my way to Florida this winter.
Thank you for joining us on Clay Mastermind with Dawn Grant. Mental excellence and industry insights. Brought to you by the Clay Lab. We hope you found today's episode inspiring and informative. Remember, mastering the mental game is key to unlocking your full potential on the course. And through our conversations with industry leaders, we aim to provide you with valuable insights into the world of clay shooting. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow, rate, and share it. For more insights, training tips, and updates on upcoming events, Dawn Grant and Amelia Shotgun Sports are on all social media platforms. Go to dawngrant.com and come shoot at Amelia Shotgun Sports. Stay focused, stay driven, and keep pushing your limits. Until next time, Dawn wishes you success and happiness on your journey to peak performance and industry mastery.